Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight to talk about solar for renters and landlords. Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to the life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations and to their elders past, present, and future. I'm Mel Miller-Ewell, Sustainability Officer at Yarra City Council. Before we begin tonight, a bit about using Zoom. Next slide, please. Thanks. Tonight's session is being recorded and your microphone and video are turned off. We have two speakers with us tonight and we'll have time for Q&A after each of our speakers. So you can pop your questions in the Q&A function throughout the presentations and we'll read them out to be answered by the presenters during Q&A time. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible and we may respond directly to your question in writing in the Q&A section. If you have a question that isn't answered by the end of the session, you can get in touch with Solar Victoria or the Yarra Energy Foundation afterward. You can use the chat function for any technical issues or for anything you'd like to contribute to the broader conversation, such as useful links. All the links that you see on screen during the presentation will be shared by email at the end of the session. Tonight, we're joined by Sarah Johnson, Director of Policy and Sector Development at Solar Victoria, and Pete Mercurio, Project Manager at the Yarra Energy Foundation. Sarah will talk to us about how both renters and landlords can benefit from Victorian government solar rebates and no interest loans available through Solar Victoria. After this, Pete will tell us about the Yarra Solar Program and how the Yarra Energy Foundation can connect you with affordable, quality solar energy systems. But first, we'd like to know a little bit more about you. So I'm going to start with a poll. You'll see one question appear on your screen, and your answer is anonymous. And that will come up shortly. So please let us know the option that best describes you. Are you living in a rental property, a landlord of a rental property, a property manager for a rental property, both a tenant and a landlord of a rental property, or do you have another interest in this session? I'll give you a moment to answer the question. Your answers will be anonymous, and in a moment, we'll close the poll and share the results. So while you're filling out the poll, I'll talk a little bit about the city of Yarra and renters in the city of Yarra. Nearly 50% of Yarra residents live in rental properties, and this number is increasing. Historically, one of the biggest challenges to getting solar on rental properties was how renters and landlords could share the costs and benefits. The Solar Victoria's Solar for Rentals rebates make this possible, with both renters and landlords benefiting from renewable energy. And we'll just see now if we've got some results to the poll. We might be able to close the poll now and view the results. So of the people who are here tonight, we've got 38% who are landlords of a rental property and 63% who have another interest in tonight's session. So thank you so much for participating in the poll. We'll go on now to the next slide. Thanks. The City of Yarra has committed to powering our city with 100% renewable energy and achieving zero net emissions across the entire Yarra community by 2030. We've started with our own buildings. All of Council's electricity needs are now met by 100% renewable electricity through the Melbourne Renewable Energy Project. We also have 2,920 solar panels installed on 38 council buildings and 6 Tesla 2 batteries installed in community facilities. We're aiming to double the number of households in Yarra with solar energy systems from 9% in 2019 to 18% in 2024. And we know that building a 100% renewable Yarra will take everyone. You can take part by switching to 100% green power, installing solar, getting off gas and switching to all electric appliances, and using less energy. And now, as renters and landlords, it's now easier than ever to go solar with Solar Victoria's Solar for Rentals rebates and no interest loans, as well as discounted prices on quality solar systems through the Yarra Solar program. Next slide, please. So I'd like to share a brief story with you about a Yarra couple who own a rental property and have installed solar on both the home they live in and the one they rent out. Amaryl and Diana live in Clifton Hill. They were planning for retirement and owned the 2 neighboring 1920s cottages that were unfortunately unfit for renovation. But instead of demolishing and building a single house, they decided to build 2 new sustainable townhouses, one to live in and one to rent out to friends. They installed 38 solar panels across the 2 townhouses, or 13.8 kilowatts, as well as 2 9.8 kilowatt hour batteries. And they now produce more energy than the 2 homes use over the year. With no gas connection, the solar powers the all-electric appliances in their home and the home they rent out. Having lived in the area for 30 years, they wanted to contribute to creating buildings that stand the test of time and provide energy freedom to future generations. They decided to apply the same sustainability ethos to the property that they would rent out. Amaryl told us, "We wanted anyone who comes to live in the second house to enjoy a comfortable, healthy home with lower energy costs for most of the year. We know that installing solar on any property increases its value too, so it made sense to just do it even if we don't pay the bills." So you can learn more about how you can switch to 100% renewable energy at yarracity.vic.gov.au/renewable-yarra. There's information on choosing a solar system, how it all works, getting the most out of your solar, and solar success stories like this one from people in Yarra who are powering their homes with solar. Next slide, please. I'd also like to briefly mention our new guidance for solar and heritage areas. 2/3 of Yarra homes are in a heritage overlay, including many rental properties. To make it easier to install solar in heritage areas, we've recently waived the application fee for planning applications for solar panels, and we've updated the guidance on our website to make it easier to know how to get solar in a heritage overlay. If the panels won't be visible from a street or a park, you don't need to apply for a planning permit for solar. We know that getting to 100% renewables will take all of us, including the half of Yarra residents who are renting. And that's why we're really excited about Solar Victoria's Solar for Renters rebates. Now I'll introduce our first speaker to tell you more about that. Sarah Johnson is Director of Policy and Sector Development at Solar Victoria. Solar Victoria was created as a portfolio entity within the Victorian Government's Department of Environment, Water, Land and Planning. It's responsible for the delivery of the Victorian Government's Solar Homes program, which is one of the most ambitious and transformative renewable energy programs in Australia. This program is a key initiative in the Victorian Government's commitment to reduce energy costs, boost energy supply, create new jobs in the renewable sector, and tackle climate change. The Solar for Renters program is a component of the Solar Homes program, helping renters and landlords to benefit from the installation of solar panels on their homes. And with that, I'll hand over to Sarah to tell us more about this program.
Thank you, Mel, and Karen and the team at the City of Yarra. Hello, everyone. My name's Sarah Johnson, and I work at Solar Victoria. We're really excited to be here tonight to talk to you about accessing solar for rental properties. Particularly in light of some of the City of Yarra's really ambitious goals, being powered by 100% renewable, doubling the amount of rooftop solar panels in Yarra. It's working with local councils like this that's actually going to help us reach as many Victorians as possible in terms of being able to access renewable energy. So I thought tonight I'd give you a little bit of an overview of who is Solar Victoria, some of our, just touch on our programs, and then talk you through the process for accessing our solar for rentals rebates and no interest loans. I've got my team here tonight, which is great. Monique and Helen and Adara. They're here in the background and we'll be capturing any questions and insights so that if we're not able to answer them tonight, then we'll certainly feed them back to the team at the City of Yarra and to the team at the Yarra Energy Foundation, and Peter will come and talk to you after me. So what is Solar Victoria? It's a portfolio of the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, which is a mouthful, otherwise known as DELP. We exist to help as many Victorian households access affordable energy as possible. You'd already be aware that we are experiencing and part of one of the most rapid energy transitions in the world, and Victoria is certainly leading the way in many aspects of this. So solar homes is both an indication of that commitment to that transition, as well as a really practical way to help support that along the way as part of this 10-year program. In terms of the programs that, or the offers that Solar Homes has, we are committed to 778,000 rebates over the life of the program. We've got a few other offerings that are available, and I'll touch on those in a moment. I am really keen, as I said, I'm focusing on the rental side of this tonight. There will be information or places to go for more information, most obviously our website at the end. There is a chat function, so feel free to ask questions in the chat function, and there will be a Q&A at the end. So if you want to pop it in the chat function, great, but otherwise I'll be here to answer questions until the end. So in terms of what it is that we do, we have our Solar Homes program, which has it comprises of 650,000 rebates for solar PV across Victoria, 18,500 rebates, which increased recently from original 10,000 for batteries to households in Victoria. 60,000 rebates to access hot water systems, efficient hot water systems, and 50,000 rebates that are dedicated to this rental stream. The program itself was launched in August 2018, and since then we've been able to give out $275 million worth of rebates in a little under 2.5 years. We've installed nearly 140,000 solar systems on Victorian rooftops. And I think, in terms of our approved products and installers and retailers lists, we've done a lot of work in developing the sector and being able to lift those standards in terms of the safety of the workers and the safety of the products that we're looking to be installed. So anyone that wants to access a Solar Victoria rebate needs to use an approved installer or retailer and access one of our approved products and services. And this is one of the ways that we're looking to ensure consumer protections for you and lift the standards of the industry. So in terms of the rebates themselves and what are they, we have, as I mentioned, 3 main types in terms of solar PV, batteries and hot water, and then that rebate stream that exists for dedicated to solar for rentals. The solar, since we've launched, we've been able to start with that original proposition of a rebate of $1,800 to a home. And we've expanded our program offerings, or channels, if you will, through programs like our Solar for Community Housing, where we've been able to work direct with community housing organisations to provide solar. You may have heard recently that there's been a launch of both a heating and cooling upgrade program, which is about to launch officially and be accessible any day now. We've also got a Solar for Business program, which is designed for small businesses to be able to access solar rebates. And you may have also heard that we recently launched a zero emissions vehicle subsidy. So that'll be another rebate stream that will add to the portfolio certainly in this calendar year. But I know that you're here to talk about accessing rebates and no interest loans for rental properties. So in terms of the program and why we did it, most of you would be well aware that one of the challenges in this space, particularly for renewable energy, has been what is commonly known as the split incentive. So it's something that a landlord might invest in on an investment property, but it's actually the tenant that enjoys the benefit in terms of a reduced energy bill. We wanted to look at that and try and unpack that and be able to empower both landlords and renters to see this as a benefit to both, and really to begin to empower renters to feel more proactive and take an active role in trying to work hand in glove with their landlords to be able to access renewable energy. It's, it'll be no surprise to many that, there's a huge population of households that are renters in Victoria, and there's a lot of people that we're missing out. So this is the beginning of us trying to expand how we make it accessible to as many Victorians as possible. To be able to do that, we actually had to change the Residential Tenancies Act. And the reason that we did that was to make it as fair and equitable for both renters and for landlords as possible. It ensured that we were able to put protections in place that meant that this would be an agreement that both came to. And in the event that there was a no interest loan, should the tenant want to participate in the repayment of that loan, it would be at a no harm to either in terms of how that is set up and structured, and it became much more about it being a partnership. So what does this actually mean? The rental for rental providers, landlords, which I think there's 38% of you in the room tonight, as per our other rebate streams, we have a rebate available for solar PV up to $1,850. Now, for landlords, you're able to apply that to 2 investment properties in addition to your own home. So, pardon me, the criteria for solar homes for owner-occupiers is 1 rebate per household. For rental providers, you still get that benefit to the home that you occupy, but you can also apply it to 2 potential investment properties. In addition to the rebate, you're able to access a no interest loan of up to the same amount. Now, this is administered by state trustees and will be paid directly to the rental provider. Part of being able to provide this was really so that we could improve for the landlord or the rental provider, help you to improve the value and the amenity of the properties that you have tenants in. We know that from market research, 2/3 of renters see property with solar systems as a more attractive rental proposition, somewhere that they want to live. And we believe, and we've got some research that shows that adding solar may help keep rentals in your rental property more longer term. So in addition to them saving money, having I guess a warmer, healthier, safer home, they're more likely to be able to want to stay with you for a longer time. If that essential bill has been reduced, obviously that helps in how they're managing their outgoings in other ways. And this is particularly important at this really challenging time. From a renter's perspective, as I said, it helps to reduce their energy bills by hundreds of dollars per year. It increases the thermal comfort and the enjoyment, and it ensures that they're warmer in winter, cooler in summer, that they can run their fridge and fill it with food, and helps them to feel like they're participating in a transition, and where it's important, reducing their impact on the environment. So there's three main steps to this. The rental, we've tried to establish it in a way that either or might start this conversation. So our current criteria for any solar homes rebate is that the property where the system will be installed must be valued at under $3 million. We ask in general that the occupant has a household income of less than $180,000, and there's a third requirement from an owner-occupier position that I've completely forgotten, but I'll come back to you with that. Where this actually comes into, how this changes slightly in this arrangement is the value of the house remains the same. We look to the tenant to be able to verify their annual income, and we need to see that there is a current rental agreement in place. This means that we're entering into providing you with the rebate with some certainty that the tenant is aware that this is works that you intend to undertake, because they need to be a part of that installation process. And that we're staying true in terms of being able to provide rebates to the people that need it the most. So, excuse me, where the no interest loan for the same amount then comes in, is that we look for the landlord can apply for that loan, and that, as per an owner-occupier in a standalone setting, and if they want to, that's up to them to be able to manage the repayment of that loan. By changing the Residential Tenancies Act, what we were able to do is provide an option for landlords and tenants to be able to partner in the repayment of that loan. So this goes back to what I mentioned earlier in terms of trying to address that split incentive, which can sometimes be a bit of a barrier for rental providers or landlords who have to make that upfront investment. So this co-contribution is a conversation between obviously the landlord and the tenant. It doesn't require the tenant to pay that up to 50%. It can only be up to 50% of the cost of the loan. So essentially you're going halves in the repayment, and that means that the tenant actually has some skin in the game, really, in helping you to repay that investment. And we've worked out that over the life of the loan, which is 4 years at $1,850, the maximum that a tenant would pay is $19.27 per month. Now, if you weigh that up against what their likely monthly energy bill is, we believe that in most cases, the tenant will still be ahead in terms of their reduced energy bills and being able to access renewable energy. It's really important for me to state here that the life of the no interest loan is 4 years. It is attached to that tenancy agreement. So if the tenant moves on within that 4 years, the provisions in the Tenancy Act provide that repayment does not follow that tenant. It stays with the property and therefore reverts back to being the responsibility of the landlord to repay. It also can't be recouped through things like withholding a bond or anything of that nature, and that's written into the Act. That gives the tenant some protection and comfort that they're not signing on to something and there's any sort of hidden costs that they might or credit issues that they might run up against later, but really tries to engender that sense of this being a real partnership. And so that's where we have the landlord, once there's an agreement, whether or not it's, you know, with a loan or without a loan, or that the tenant pays 50% of that repayment, it's up to you. It could be 40, it could be 30, it could be less. That's a conversation for you and the tenants, for the tenant and the landlord to have. And then we ask that you there's a landlord-tenant agreement that's part of the application. And once that's signed by both parties, the rebate is processed and we move on to installation. So what does that look like? How do we do this? Step one, same as in any other scenario, is to visit the Solar Homes website, and there's a dedicated page and site that steps out what we're looking for if you're a rental provider or a landlord, or what we're looking for if you're a tenant and you might want to start that conversation. Where you are, we're obviously working with Council and with Yarra Energy Foundation to try and build our capacity for you to have places to go to really help step through that. But once you think that this is something that you'd like to progress for a rental provider or a landlord, then we look for you to download, to have that conversation, get an agreement, and then once you've got that agreement, it's pretty much the same as applying as it would be for your own home. It's up to the landlord or the rental provider to source the quote from one of our approved installers. It's up to the rental provider to complete the application online and fill in those forms. And it's up to you and the installer to notify the tenant when that system will be installed, because it will need to be the tenant that's home, obviously, when the system is ready to be installed. Now, if the property is vacant, it might be you that's there, but in most cases, we need the tenant to be kept informed and available for the installers. Now, I've mentioned this light touch in terms of steps for renters and trying to ensure that we are providing some tools to help tenants to be able to start that conversation if that was the case. So if there is any tenants out there that might be thinking, I might have a sympathetic landlord, then again, I would encourage you to visit Solar Homes, go to the Solar for Renters page, and there we have some information that helps you start the conversation. We have a template letter that you might send to either your landlord, if you know who that is, but in many cases, it might be about sending this to your estate agent and saying, I'd like to start this conversation with my landlord. Can you help me make it happen? Should that conversation happen, then, as I said, for the renter, it's about ensuring that you have that conversation about whether or not you are in a position to make a co-contribution should the landlord want to access a loan. They might not want to access the loan. If they do, you have that opportunity to co-contribute, but you're not obliged to. It's up, as I said, it's up to the landlord to be able to process the application. and for the tenant to be on site for the installation of the property. That's really the process. It's got an additional level of, I guess, looking for confirmation and encouragement around that partnership between the landlord or agent and the tenant. But from a landlord's point of view, we're looking to ensure that you've got more opportunities to access rebates and to help you along with that, recognising that it is an investment on top of the investment you've already made. Those no interest loans exist to really help you to balance out some of those costs. And if the tenant's able to potentially get that co-contribution while they enjoy lower energy costs. So there's more information, as I said, on our website, solar.vic.gov.au. We are, as I said, working in partnership with the City of Yarra and with the Yarra Energy Foundation, and they will have all of the information, this information from tonight, and we'll ensure that they're able to help step you through that application process if need be. There's a list of authorised retailers and installers and indeed products on our website, so that can give you a sense of the types of products and services that we feel are really at the top of their game, really. And I think that's about it from me. I feel like I've done enough talking. So over to you.
Thanks very much, Sarah. That was really great to hear all about the program. And it's such a fantastic rebate to give renters and landlords access to that rebate of up to $1,850 and then the option of a no interest loan of up to the same value. Really addressing that split incentive of who benefits. And now it's much more possible and much easier for both renters and landlords to share the benefits of solar. So we do have some questions coming in. We'll have our first Q&A session now. There's an anonymous question. Is the landlord's income relevant?
The reason that the short answer is no in this for the investment property. It is for if they're looking for a rebate on their own property, but because it's actually the tenant that is going to, I guess, realise the benefit of those reduced savings, we want to keep it in the realm of, where we've set our existing program criteria and ensure that as many people as possible are accessing those benefits within that criteria. So that's why we're looking at what the tenant's income is in this setting.
Great, thanks. Another question that's come through is inner city rentals are turned over often. And it's a question about the income cap for tenants. So the question is the 180,000 income cap much of a barrier for landlords, given that the next tenant may earn a different income, and landlords are unlikely to keep revisiting this at each new tenancy? So I guess the question is probably more around whether that still applies if there's a change of tenant and how that works.
In essence, it only applies to the current tenancy. So if you recall, one of the criteria or one of part of the parameters around so the rebate sits with the current tenancy. So if that's approved and that goes through, then we don't check it every time there's a new tenant. Where that becomes, I think where this question might be coming from is where it's related to the no interest loan. So if you've applied for a no interest loan up to the same amount and you have that agreement, then there is a co-contribution from that tenant, then that's all tied up and approved for that tenancy. If that tenant moves on, that loan becomes the responsibility of the landlord. It's not passed on to the next tenant. So the person's point with the question. Once the rebate is approved, it's approved. We wouldn't check it on every new tenant that comes through. If there are new tenants and there is a loan repayment, it cannot be moved to the new tenant. It needs to stay with the landlord.
Great. That's a really clear answer, and really, I think that answers the question really well. And also just interesting to hear in your presentation that 2/3 of renters see solar as an attractive proposition, and that you've also seen a demonstration of renters actually staying in the property longer because it is more comfortable and they have lower energy bills. So hopefully that also helps to address that issue if it becomes an issue for the landlord.
Yeah, I think it's one of the I guess tenancy retention. You know, it's something that we understand as a concept, and it's very real in the minds of landlords, and this can feel like it's, you know, an investment that might not result in that, but that's actually, the research is actually showing that you know, that ability to have affordable and reliable energy so that they can live comfortably is a really attractive proposition for renters.
Yeah, great. A couple of more questions have come through. Would the landlord pass on part of the cost of installation to the tenant through increased rent?
So in terms of, a great question, in terms of how the work that we did in terms of reviewing the Residential Tenancies Act, you know, the way that it exists, it stands at the moment, despite our program, is that there's only you know, a certain amount that landlords can increase, you know, their rent annually. So those conditions still apply. If solar is installed in you know, consultation and agreement with the current tenant, they would not be able to increase that rent above and beyond, outside the boundaries of the existing Act. So as per the existing schedule. If that tenant moved on and there was a new tenant that came in, as per the current market structure, the landlord would be well within their rights to increase the amount of that rent to reflect the, I guess, the increased value in the investment that they've made in that property, but not while the tenant is there, outside of the existing Residential Tenancies Act and the boundaries that are there about how often that can be increased.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. One more question. How does Solar Victoria help owners with properties covered by owners' corporations?
Owners, so that, as I understand that, that's one structure often in an apartment setting. So I think that's where we might be going with that.
I think so. Could possibly also relate to a smaller, like a block of flats or units.
Yeah, look, it's a really tricky one still. We recognise in one of the sort of foundational principles of setting up this renters program and making that, you know, putting that flag in the sand to say we want to start to unpack this split incentive problem, was recognising that once we got that foundation right, there were other avenues that we wanted to explore in terms of accessibility to renewable energy, and certainly multi-dwelling and apartment dwelling and owners corporations is one of those. It's not impossible. Technically, a owners corporation could apply, but as per the Owners Corporation Act, they would need to have the approval of the entire owners corporation. You know, there's you know, existing challenges around equity, about roof space, around who is able to access the energy and how that's structured. It's not out of bounds of the program, but we haven't been able to yet to take this and then build on it even further to be able to help tenants in that setting be able to access it easier. We know it's a problem or it's a challenge. We are actively looking into it, doing research on how to unpick that problem. We would love to be able to be looking at doing a pilot in that setting in the next 12 months or so. So I guess in that sense, it's really watch this space.
Great. Yeah, hopefully we'll see some really interesting solutions coming out of that space, because I think there's a lot of interest in that space, and
absolutely, and it's moving really quickly. There's fantastic technology out there. It's really about, similar to this program, how we get all the interested parties at the table, how we're having conversations, and at the end, the results are shared equitably, and people feel that they're a part of something, or they're not being locked out of something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'll leave it there for the first question time. If you still have more questions for Sarah or for Solar Victoria, please continue to put them in the Q&A during our next presentation, and Sarah will still be available to answer more questions during the next Q&A. And thanks, Sarah. And now I'll introduce our second speaker. Pete Mercurio is a senior project manager at the Yarra Energy Foundation. He has 10 years experience in energy efficiency, and solar. Pete's role at YEF, as the wearer of many hats, includes advising residents about solar, helping residents compare and understand solar quotes and electricity bills, offering advice on home energy efficiency, energy research, and managing the Yarra Solar Program. As I mentioned earlier, the City of Yarra is aiming to double the number of households in Yarra with solar energy systems from 9% in 2019 to 18% by 2024. And to do this, we've partnered with the Yarra Energy Foundation to take the guesswork out of solar and bring you discounted prices on solar energy systems through the Yarra Solar Program. Pete will share some information about this program and how YEF can support renters and landlords to get solar. Over to you, Pete.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks for the introduction. Much appreciated. And Sarah, thank you for all that information. I know for those sitting at home, it might be a lot to digest, and that's kind of where Yarra Energy Foundation fits in. Next slide, please, Tim, if that's all right. So you might be wondering, who is the Yarra Energy Foundation? So the Yarra Energy Foundation was set up by the people of Yarra 10 years ago, a bit over 10 years ago now, as a solution to helping residents of Yarra and businesses transition to a clean, green future. We're an independent, not-for-profit, and we engage and inspire people to take practical steps towards, a zero carbon future. And, just touching on that apartment issue that we might find with owners corporations, we've helped a lot of apartments at the moment, particularly because it's become such an in vogue thing with getting solar and navigating that conversation with an owners corporation, being the champion of your building. So, that's what we're here for. We're here to simplify everything, provide you the right information. And working with Sarah and working with Solar Victoria is all about that. So, if you might not get the right answer from, your solar provider or your retailer, come to us, definitely. So the Yarra Solar Program was set up to respond to the climate emergency that we're all facing. And we devised that strategy in conjunction with the Yarra City Council, of course, naturally. And our goal is to double rooftop solar. Excuse me, I'm going to speak a little bit quickly, just because I'm conscious of time. Next slide, please, Tim. So look, a lot of things that we've been doing is a year before COVID, what a year that was. I was helping a lot of public housing residents with their utility bills. All in all, ended up being about 400 people living in the Richmond estate and across to the Fitzroy estate. And they've saved about 20 grand with those 400 people. And it starts with one connection and building that community. And that's what happens here in the top right corner. You see me there. We're able to, through our commercial partnerships, able to donate a 5 kilowatt system to the Collingwood Children's Farm. And since we've advised and helped them with some grants, and now I think they're probably going to be doing all their buildings fitted with solar through grants. We also help Stomping Ground Brewery, it's in Collingwood, navigate the solar market, and they've installed, I think, 96 kilowatts or something to that effect, and lots of other businesses. Sarah touched on those solar rebates through Solar Victoria, for business, and we're helping a couple of businesses at the moment access those grants. So it's really exciting stuff, particularly in that world of commercial businesses, because they are doing it really tough, particularly now in our fourth bloody lockdown. But you know what? It's a great initiative that Solar Victoria are employing, and we're here to make that simple for businesses and landlords and any resident who lives across Yarra. Next slide, please, Tim. Beautiful. So the Yarra Solar Program, what is it? So Sarah touched on as well, an approved solar retailer can only be used to access those grants. Now, an approved solar retailer or an accredited solar retailer and installer is through the Clean Energy Council. That is a large not-for-profit. And, you know, they're basically the regulator / guideline owner of what can and can't be done in terms of solar companies coming into the mix. So we add that extra level of security. There's so many solar providers in the market at the moment, and we run our own expression of interest tender process to solar companies. And a part of that is, you know, having them meet over 66 points of criteria. It's pretty robust, pretty comprehensive. And through that process, we look at the product, we look at the warranties. Again, this is all to simplify the choice for you. On top of that, we negotiate 20% off their product, which for all participants in the Yarra Solar Program, whether it be a business, whether it be a resident or a landlord or a tenant. Next slide, please, Tim, if you wouldn't mind. So why did we select Enviro Group? Enviro Group, not sure if you know Enviro Shop, they are connected. Enviro Shop is on High Street in Northcote. Fantastic organisation, been around for a very long time. That's a big tick in our book, been around for a long time, because a lot of these solar companies that come in and out of the market, when there aren't rebates available, they'll go under and then they'll phoenix again when there are rebates available. So Enviro Group, a fantastic partner, high quality tier one products meaning an international financial rating done by Bloomberg Financial. All the product available is through that rating system, through all our programs across the state. And naturally, they agreed to YEF's request of roughly 20% discount for all their products available through for participants of the program, which is really important, really important. Obviously, strong customer service record is equally important, but also just having the conversations bluntly with them. That's where I kind of come in as well, troubleshooting issues. So if there is an issue you have with Enviro Group or other solar providers, you know, we're here as a not-for-profit independent body to guide you in the right direction. Next slide, please, Tim. Thank you. I just wanted to give you guys a couple of examples of some of the installs Enviro Group have done. Now, I'm not going to go too heavy into the product that's available, just because I don't have time, but this install that they've done here was award-winning, obviously not in Yarra. Well, maybe it is, I haven't found it yet, but it's fantastic. Really great installation. That's been done with microinverters. When you've got a lot of shading on the roof and you have to split those solar panels up in different subsystems, microinverters are the way to go. They're a little bit more expensive, no doubt, just because the technology, of course, but it is the best solution on an install like that. Next slide, please, Tim. So this is what you'll see more commonly in some places across Yarra. This is your kind of your standard install. You know, it's a flush system, flush mounted to the roof there. No tilt frames required. A tin roof, very simple install. Pull the screws out, put the screws in for your mounting frame. It's a really, you know, I like to say it's a really sexy install. It's not as common as we'd like to think. The next slide, Tim, will show us what is more common across Yarra. And similarly to the first slide of that amazing install, you know, you might have different pitches, you might have different roof orientations. Unfortunately for Yarra, we've got a lot of weird roofs, which doesn't make it easy to get solar installed. So the doubling of solar in Yarra is a great aim, great outcome. We can't wait to achieve that. But it's not as simple as parts in the outer suburbs, new builds where roofs are pretty simple to do and install. So a lot of solar companies will refuse to even engage in inner city Melbourne on that basis alone. But with our partner Enviro Group and the due diligence that we've done behind that, they're more than happy to look at every roof. And they're great partners to work with from my perspective, but also from a resident perspective too. So that's really common, that roof there. So an east to west kind of orientation. What's really important about this, what's really important to know, the wattage in each panel really dictates the size of your system. And over the past 3 years, it's been pretty amazing how the increase in efficiency of panels have become. Even 3 years ago, you'd find a 270 watt panel. Now you're seeing 370 watt panels. So due to that, if your rental property has a small roof space, today you'll fit more capacity on that roof than you would have 2 years ago. That's how quickly this is evolving, how quickly everything is changing. So, back to Sarah's point about, changing the Rental Intensity Act, that takes a really long time. I know I've worked with a lot of groups similar to YEF to try and update some of that Rental Intensity Acts. And we got some wins last year as well with our advocacy in improving energy efficiency standards and allowing really thick curtains and little things like that. But that's all the stuff that we can advise you, the renter, or you, the landlord, on too. Next slide, please, Tim. So all these prices that you see in front of you, again, I know I'm rushing a bit, but it's getting closer to 8 o'clock, and I don't want to wake up my child. But these prices are available on our website. This does not include the Solar Victoria rebate at all. So you can pretty much chuck off $18.50 of all those prices, and that will be your real price. And obviously, if you throw in another $18.50 for the no interest loan, factor that in, that 3 kilowatt system with a SunGrow inverter and Trina panels, Trina being one of the most widely used panels across the world, and a SunGrow inverter, which is your kind of Toyota Camry of the inverter world, you're looking at no money down. So it really is a no-brainer. The hard part with that 3 kilowatt no-brainer aspect is, the paperwork, administration, and that's where Yarra Energy Foundation can really assist landlords particularly, and renters also. Next slide, please, Tim. So I just want to give you a quick snapshot of what a return on investment looks like, knowing that there's 38% of you landlords in there. This is for a 5 kilowatt system with a pretty heavy energy consumption usage, but this is typical probably of a family home, I would suggest. Now, this payback period does not include the rebate. So you'll find that 3.8 years move back a bit as well to 3. And this is all dependent upon, naturally, once solar is installed, on your behavior, how you change your behavior. So you might want to use your dishwasher during the day, your clothes washer during the day. You might want to have a timer for your heating and cooling from 2 to 4 or 2 to 5. So your house retains that heat. I'd like to think rental homes in Yarra are energy efficient, probably wrong. So you might need some draft proofing to retain some of that heat or cool air. But as you can see, this is a real thing. This is a small payback. In some respects, the savings that you're making is better than the increments that you make from your superannuation. Next slide, please, Tim. So if you want to get involved, I really encourage everyone out there just to head to our website and register for a quote. It's a no obligation free quote. And that way you'll know exactly how much money that the system will cost, your return on investment. It's specific to you, it's tailored to you. Enviro Group will call you to discuss all your options as well. They'll ask for a copy of your bill. And yeah, they'll provide you that quote. And then if you're unsure about a few things, give me a call. If you're a renter, a rental provider, give me a call and I'll clarify anything in that quote. And if you're not happy with it, I'm happy to report that, we've got a preferred panel of suppliers at YEF. Why we work with one group for one specific program has a lot to do with our community donation aspect. Last year, the year before last, we managed to install about 400 kilowatts across Yarra, with about 90 people participating, which is one of the better programs, not just YEF has run, but groups like us have run in the past. And now that 4 kilowatts, so for every 100 kilowatts, 1 kilowatt is donated. So 400 kilowatts installed through the program means a 4 kilowatt system. And that 4 kilowatt system is going to be installed on Lighthouse Foundation, which are in Richmond or Cremorne. And all the savings made from the solar system, all that money saved, is going into homeless youth programs, which is what Lighthouse Foundation is so great at doing. And I couldn't be happier being a part of that for them to go on and do that, which is excellent. Next slide, please, Tim. So just to, well, I won't go into too much detail on this because Sarah did touch on this, but obviously if you need some assistance with the Solar Victoria portal or the way in which to upload documents or get a further understanding of what's required for Solar Victoria to tick you off and be eligible, you know, come to us. EnviroGroup will also help you along that way. And then solar will be installed. I've got 8 to 10 weeks there, and that's come down over the past week. So it's more like 6 to 8 from contract signed to getting your solar installed. Then an independent inspector will look at it within 3 weeks and you're connected to the grid. Next slide, please, Tim. So one of the things I really want to encourage everyone here tonight to do, I've done this recently myself for my own home, take a look at your bill, use that website down the bottom there, compare.energy.vic.gov.au. That is a government website that compares energy offers on the market with your retailer. There's other compare websites, but the people who pay for the advertising dollars will be on top. This website does not do that. This person here, their peak charge is 46 cents. That is more than double than the default offer that the Victorian government have in place. And the supply charge of $1.11 per day, that charge, which you can't control, is also astronomically high. I've changed mine. I'm on 18 cents peak and off peak 11. That is far different to that 46 cents, obviously, there. And my supply charge is 77 cents. So even just looking at your bill, you can make a lot of savings. And we can also help you look at 100% green renewable energy offers on the market as well. So like I said, I know I'm talking quickly, but come to YEF and we can guide you in the right direction. Next slide, please, Tim. We're wrapping up here. So how will we support you through the program? Well, effectively, if you've got any questions at all about your quote, come to us. We'll clarify that. If you have an issue with your solar system 2 years from now, 3 years from now, come back to us. We'll sort it out. I've only had to do that once in my 4 years at YEF for one resident from one of our programs. And that was just because their inverter broke down. That's 1 out of 800. It's pretty good odds, I'd say, that you won't suffer that problem, but we're here to do that. And anything other energy equipment related, whether it be hot water heat pump, solar hot water, split systems, we can guide you into making the right decision for you. Next slide, please, Tim. Call to action, everybody. You know, like I said, register, get a no obligation free quote, pretty simple stuff. Check your billing through that website, compare.vic.gov.au. There's a lot of amazing and interesting things that we're looking at doing and rolling out. One of those of which is the neighbourhood battery. We've partnered with City Power, our grid operator across Yarra and many of Metro Melbourne areas. And hopefully, with any luck, we'll be rolling that out, which is really helpful for people who live in apartments and units who want to access renewable energy. More to come on that. It's a really exciting prospect that's coming there. Also, you know, if you do own a business or have a friend that owns a business, those business rebates, again, coming through Solar Victoria. Thank you, Sarah and team. It's really great to have that support, particularly for businesses doing it so tough at the moment. We can help them with quotes, getting quotes, and advising them of which direction is the best direction for them. I think that's it. Tim, next slide. Yes, you beauty. I nailed it. 16 minutes. It's a world record. That's all from me. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask now. If something does pop in your head overnight or even in the morning, please reach out to us at YEF, information@yef.org.au. I think, Tim, the next slide has a number. Yeah, down the bottom there, 9429 6070. That's all from me. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks so much, Pete. It was great to hear all about the Yarra Solar program, all of the ways that YEF can support residents, and really interesting to hear your advice that technology has come a long way, and even over the past couple of years, things have changed. So if you've looked at solar a few years ago, it's still worth looking again because you might be able to have a solution that wasn't available a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So we do have a few more questions coming in. We'll have another question time now. So if you have any other questions, please continue to put them in the Q&A and we will read them out to be answered by our presenters. The first question I have here is for Sarah about the rebates. Is it possible, for instance, for 2 landlords to apply for 2 rebates and share benefits for their renters with one solar system?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, because I'm having a bit of trouble driving just a second.
No worries. We can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Look, it's a good question. It's probably not a straightforward answer. I think depending on the structure, it might need a software or technology solution to be able to enable sharing. So we'd really have to take that one on notice, I think, and look at that as a standalone application or even situation to be able to see if it's worth applying in the first place.
Great, thanks. It sounds like that's one to follow up and get in touch with Solar Victoria if you'd like more information about that particular situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
The next question is from Hillary. Hillary says, I'd love to hear Pete's take on solar for apartments with embedded networks. Our owners corporation has been told by our energy retailer that installing solar on our apartment complex would not benefit tenants.
So that's a great question, and I'll be as honest as I can be. I wouldn't necessarily believe your energy retailer on anything related to the benefit of solar necessarily. The reason why I say that is because that retailer is generally providing you that embedded network. The last thing they want is for you to change to another retailer. Now, in theory, as an embedded network, you are getting a cheaper rate from the going market rate, but that depends when that contract was signed. So what I would ask, Hillary, is that you send me one of your bills just so I can have a look at that. Now, we won't be able to change or do anything until that contract with your retailer and that embedded network has expired. Then at that point, you can go back to that energy retailer that you're with. And after you've gone to market, we can help you with that and say, you know what, I can actually get a cheaper deal here. Can you match that? Also, that's when you can have the conversation about solar for your apartment block with the retailer or the new retailer. But yeah, it does just depend on when that contract ends.
Thanks, Pete. So another one to get in touch with YEF and follow up to get specific advice about your apartment complex, and hopefully there will be a solution in the works for you. Another question, does YEF provide advice on batteries? Yes, all things energy. We provide advice on batteries. It's really difficult actually in a city, Melbourne, mostly to do with space. So, you know, a Tesla Powerwall might be an oversized solution, but it actually might fit your property. Other batteries might be a bit cumbersome. So I'm just talking logistically, but also the return on investment for a battery at the moment may not be the right solution for you. Batteries typically are like $10,000 to $15,000 investment. And the warranty on those batteries are about 10 years. So, you know, sometimes that doesn't pan out. But like I said, we would have to look at your bills, what sort of battery solution you're after, and then I'll be able to provide you, you know, proper advice as to which direction you should go. Thanks, Pete. That's great. Lots of things you can contact YEF for more advice on. Yeah. Well, it's ever changing, Mel. It's dynamic. It's changing all the time. It's, you know, it's hard to keep up sometimes, but absolutely. I couldn't be more excited about where the industry is headed. And, you know, that's in no short part with Sarah and her team at Solar Victoria really pushing this and state government really ensuring that this transition doesn't leave anyone out. It's quite an important thing. Definitely. Yep. And on that, there's another question here for Sarah. This question is about the question is, has it been difficult getting the word out about the Solar for Renters program to landlords, real estate agents, and renters? And what would you recommend to break down the potential communication barriers there? Now, I know, Sarah, you mentioned in your presentation that you have a template letter that's available for renters to use to get in touch with their landlord or their property manager. Is there any other advice or recommendations that you could give around having that conversation, whether it's coming from the landlord or coming from the tenant or property manager? Yeah, great question. I think it's one of those spaces that is really early doors in terms of who feels confident to have that conversation, particularly from a renter's perspective. You know, we know that renters want this, and we know that, you know, just not because of renewable energy, but often they feel disempowered to have conversations about, you know, how to
improve the home that they're living in. Mostly because they're concerned that if there were improvements made, it would result in an increase in rent. So, trying to build that literacy, like create that safety barrier through the Residential Tenancies Act changes has been a really important foundation for us to be able to go out with confidence and say, no, this is hard, but we've created a platform where, it shouldn't be an outcome of you requesting this upgrade or this investment in your property. We have talked to various stakeholders along the food chain. So, from doing focus groups with both landlords and renters. We've talked with real estate agents. We've talked with property managers. We've talked to the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. So we are trying to begin to get that message out through a range of channels. We're currently working on some collateral and packs so that we can work in partnership with agents and make sure they feel confident having this conversation if they're asked those questions. We've still got a bit of way to go, and it's been a challenging year, so it's not been easy to get that message out. We just want people to make sure that they're healthy and safe. But again, and I'm harping on about it, but this is where that local level support, trusted advisors through both council and organisations like YEF really come to the fore, because people will often first and foremost go to a place they see and trust before they'll take that next level, or know that they've got someone holding their hand or backing them in having that conversation. And in both the renters conversation and in everything that Pete was talking about tonight, I can't underestimate or speak highly enough of organisations like YEF that actually do have the local knowledge. They do know the operating environment. They know what your structures are like. They know what the roof space is like. They know what the challenges are for residents, and they know their stuff. So it's really use those skills, those resources, because not everybody has access to them, and that they want the same thing that you do, which is access to solar and renewable energy. So you're really lucky to have an organisation and a council as forward thinking and ready to help as Yarra.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sarah. I think that's a really great point that you make, that it's a lot of it is about having the confidence to have these conversations, both from the tenant's perspective, also the property managers. It's kind of a new space, a new type of conversation for all parties involved. And so it's something that it's new to everyone. And I think it's also a really great point you make that having an organization like YEF here to support you, ring them up, and they can help you to have that conversation, or to get a quote, and then take that to your landlord or your tenant and start that discussion with them.
A lot of strata management companies have started asking your advice about how to go about that as well. So, this has only come about by the amount of support that's being offered by Solar Victoria. So this is moving. There is momentum, and it is really exciting to help people transition. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. We've got a couple more questions here. I'll see what we can get through with the time that we have. Pete, there's a question for you. Does YEF give advice to owners or renters in other municipalities?
Yes, we do, most definitely. So yeah, we don't just stick with Yarrow. We run programs all across the state. East Gippsland, Wellington, Latrobe, Bawbaw, Hume, Port Phillip, Murrindindi, the list goes on. So yeah, we're always happy to assist anyone, because as we all know, climate change responses aren't just fixed to Yarra. It's everywhere. So that's where the need is, and that's where we'll be. Great,
thanks, Pete. And a question for Sarah: has the uptake of the rebates for renters been in line with the uptake for owner occupiers?
Great question. No, is the short answer. I think you would have seen, from the launch of the program, there was much excitement, and people were, really took on the opportunity to access. The owner occupiers really took on that opportunity to access. There was almost a year delay. We had the renters program, but we didn't have the no interest loans, and we hadn't done the work around the Residential Tenancies Act. So it actually took us a bit longer to really shape that to where we wanted it to be and to ensure that those protections were there. We had just got to a point where we were able to launch it, and then found ourselves living in a very different world. That said, from starting from a very slow burn and some really keen beans who knew that it was there and accessed it, we have seen a marked increase in uptake in that particular stream, even through this challenging time. So it's definitely a really noticeable increase in uptake, particularly in the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 months.
That's great to hear. And I know that work that you've done around the Residential Tenancies Act was a very significant piece of work and took some time to make all of that happen. And of course, we all know what a year we had last year. So
Yeah.
It's really great to hear that that renters and landlords are able to get involved now, and it's really exciting times. So I'll leave it there with the questions because we're coming to the end of our time tonight. But I want to extend a huge thank you to Sarah Johnson from Solar Victoria and Pete Mercurio from the Yarra Energy Foundation. We did get through all the questions that were asked tonight, but if you have a question that occurs to you later, please get in touch with Solar Victoria or please get in touch with the Yarra Energy Foundation for more information. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. You'll see on the screen now, there's some links for more information. For more information about the Solar Victoria rebates for rental properties and the other Solar Victoria rebates, you can visit the Solar Victoria website at solar.vic.gov.au/solar rentals campaign. For more information on the Yarra Solar Program, or YEF, visit yef.org.au/Yarra Solar. For more information on what the City of Yarra is doing and how you can go 100% renewable, visit yarracity.vic.gov.au/renewable Yarra. And there's another link here where you can watch the recorded webinars that we have been holding over the past year to learn about solar, green power, and more. And this recorded webinar will also be added to that link, so you can share this with your friends and other renters and landlords that you know who perhaps weren't able to come along tonight. You'll now have an email in your inbox with these links, as well as a quick survey. So we'd love to have your feedback on this session. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Have a lovely evening, and we hope to see you at another event very soon.
Thanks, everybody.